Sup Shredders, my name is Logan aka Spiderhands and welcome to an SP Reviews where today we're going to be checking out an upcoming album due for release on March the 30th. It's an album from the act titled The Groovies titled Heaven, and if we switch over to here we have it on Bandcamp again released, and it's going to be released on March 30, 2024, so if it's not yet that date yet, please do save it if you enjoy the music, save the date. I mean, if it's already past that date, please do go check it out again if you enjoy the music. But just noting, we've got Elliot Cowdery on bass, Richard Cowdery on guitar, Michael Case on vocals, drums, and lyrics. We've also got David Redding on lead guitar, as well as Stephen Talon on keyboards. So we're going to listen through each of these 6 tracks from start to finish, and we're going to hear what we think. And just get the art up there so that you can see it nice and big before we get started. And yeah, let's go, starting with Heaven. What do we got? Can we make it bigger? We can make it bigger, that's much better. I'm loving the spaciness of those reverb guitars with little tingles and the bass tone at the bottom. It's got an unusual kind of spacey tone to it. It sounds like there's a bit of flanging or phasing going somewhere in it, like as an effect, not as like an artifact or anything like that. I do like the vocals though. I think they suit the vibe of it. I just wanna be where you are. It's 7 o'clock on the 9th of July with the rain falling out of the sky. I'll wait for a while to begin again. Why, but no matter how hard that I try, I'll wait for the time to begin again. I'll wait for the chance to begin. I mean, there's a fair bit of compression on the track. I can hear that things are quite tight dynamically. But I love those vocal harmonies, they sparkle. Beautiful lyrics, man. I love the sentiment. Really sweet. I still feel every beat of your heart. Oh no. I mean, it's just really wholesome, isn't it? Great transition into a solo section here. I want to fade out to finish it out nice and classy. Now, I should note that I have lyrics. I'm not sure how easily accessible they'll be for people who, look at it through like Bandcamp and stuff like that. But I'm just gonna have a look through these lyrics, and then I'm gonna talk about what I think the first track is about and give my thoughts on it, and then we'll move on to the second. Okay, so basically, after checking through the lyrics for Heaven, just to confirm my understanding of it, I think that this track is about someone who's had like someone that they had a relationship with, they were connected with. They've moved on and they're kind of thinking about that other person and hoping that if they've found someone else, that they're happy and they've found their heaven and they've found happiness and their way home, etc. And I think it's just kind of being reminded of those people. Like I'm sure a lot of people can relate to the feeling of having someone that you were really close with, and then just one day they're just not there anymore. And you do occasionally, you are reminded of those people for whatever reason. And I think a lot of people will be able to relate to what this song is talking about. I thought that the vocals were fantastic. We had some interesting, compelling melodies over the hook and verse sections. The guitars with the clean parts there, predominantly sticking with an arpeggios with some sort of misty sort of reverb tail, as well as some really pretty tones there. Some chimes as well were really great. The bass was nice and tight as well, fantastic with the root notes and the drums. It was like a triplet groove for a lot of this track, or at least it was 6/8. And I think that that was a really cool choice as well, almost like a waltz through your own sort of memories. I'm in two minds about the production. I think that the leveling is great. It's just I might just be my headphones, but the mix, it sounds quite like things are kind of very tightly together. I'm wondering if maybe it's just an issue with my system, but it seems like there's almost not enough dynamic range between like the louder and quieter parts of the mix to kind of allow things to sort of breathe. That's my only feedback at this point. As I understand it, from what I've read, I think that this was actually mastered through Abbey Road in London. So they're very good at what they do. So I think it's a deliberate decision to have things this sort of tight in the mix. And if that's the case, that's totally fine. It's just my first impression with the band, and I'm just being transparent in my thoughts on it. Aside from that, I think that it's a really beautiful song. I like the story, the messaging, as well as how it connects to the rest of the riff. The triads that we had there, as well as the groove with the slow kind of dance thing. Well, it wasn't slow, but like the kind of dance waltzes kind of vibe we had there, they intertwined really neatly. And it makes me excited for the next track, which is called It's Not Impossible. So let's go. That bass is nice and powerful. Great layering of harmonies in the second half. Use of strings is nice. I think it's a great sort of segmentation between the verse and chorus sections there. It's great, seamless transition. You can or you can't, you can be responsible for how I feel tonight. Oh. Delay. There's a bit of a pulse from those delays, if I'm not mistaken, in the lower range there. It's kind of interesting.
It's not impossible. Ooh, it's not impossible. You won't get me responsible for what I feel tonight. Incomprehensible,
It's got a relative heaviness to it, actually.
urgent, controllable. But I know that I want you. I know that it's right. But it's making me shake because I know I'm in trouble tonight. I know it's impossible, evening, but I know it's not impossible.
No, I think that's fantastic. I'm really satisfied with that. Oh, I think that's 2 for 2. So after double checking the lyrics, I think that this track is about someone who is looking at another and realizing just how dead set they are on them. Like, they're really into them, you know. There's like physical, whatever kind of attraction there, look in their eyes, etc. It's just there's a lot of things trying to sort of prompt them to get up and close, but there's also like a sense of danger about it. Like it seems like it's gonna be impossible to kind of get near that, you know. But then they're kind of sort of talking themselves up, saying, "No, it's not impossible. I can do this." You know, questions of being untouchable and stuff like that. I think it's intriguing. I'm wondering if it's connected to heaven or if they're different people or whatever. But I mean, either way, it's an interesting story. Again, something that a lot of people are going to relate to, where like it's like you kind of have this kind of you want to make a connection with someone, you're not really sure how to do it, but then like you end up being so sort of compelled to do it that you're trying to make a move anyway, for better or worse, you know. So yeah, it's an interesting story. The vocal style goes with the mood of the lyrics and also the backing behind it. It's a little bit more sort of like I don't want to say uplifting, but a little more hopeful when those triplet toms come in, as if we're gonna kind of call to action. And at that point, we're talking about how it's not impossible. So it's like, no, it's okay. We can pluck up our courage here. We can do this. And I think having a tom accent is kind of neat, because a lot of the time you'll use cymbal grooves and fills will be like, or toms will be like a fill transition. So it's nice to have a moment sort of to center on those lower elements there, especially because having less cymbals allows more stuff in the high end to stand out, like the mid highs, like the vocals. You also had some interesting string sections, which is a new thing here. We haven't really had strings, at least I don't think we had them in the previous track. So it's nice to have those, whether they were like, you know, strings or like synth strings or whatever, they still sounded cool to me. And again, there was a lot of variety within the percussion, the guitars, bass, everything came together really well. There was nice use of reverbs and delays in the vocals as well as in the guitar parts there. And ultimately, I just think it was another really well-structured piece that didn't rest on its laurels for too long. It didn't take the listener's attention for granted. I don't think there was any filler there. Yeah, again, 2 for 2. Because we've got Phantom Radio next, track number 3. It's a bit of a longer one, but that should be good. They can definitely handle their shorter singles, so that's great. Good job of Foley with the radio stuff. I used space with the call and response there. Really fizzy guitar tone. That's the thing I was talking about before. I feel as if there was just if there was a little bit more dynamic range in a recording, those parts where you sort of crescendo with the toms, I think would be a little bit more intense. I get that it's good to have a relative smoothness to the sound of a recording, but
Repeat the words over and over. Now you just can't seem to take it. Listening all your lifetime. The song ends, but you keep on dancing, yeah.
really pretty harmonies with the guitar solo in that little break there. Dude, it's really satisfying to listen to.
Friday night at the Phantom Radio. Wall to wall because all your friends will go. As you step on the dance floor, wonder why you're alone there, baby. Move to music that
And what I like there, I'm sorry to interrupt so much. There's just a few really cool things happening. Like, did you hear that tom fill go back to left to right? It's that kind of stuff where on a stereo system you might not necessarily notice it as much, but in headphones you really notice that switch there. It's really cool sound design. It catches your attention, you know?
Repeat the words over and over, and you just can't seem to fake it. Listening all your lifetime. The world ends, but the band keeps playing, yeah. It's closing time at
Middle eight.
the radio.
Continuation.
You look around, but there's nowhere else to go. All the DJs are watching. Signals often get crossed down here, babe. Static over the airways now. Guess it's time to go.
Interesting position for that lead there. Sorry to interrupt. So was that like a crowd or something like that, or was that more sort of radio static with the guitar moving left to right? I'm just wanting to confirm that, because it would be kind of interesting if it was like a crowd, or like if it was a radio, like we were still trying to find the right signal and the guitar was the thing we were sort of trying to walk away from or something like that, or we were trying to chase the guitar around. I like that the octaves are continuing. I think that's a nice extra layer in the mix. I see that was a nice little bit of vocal fry that we had there before that transition. A nice little bit of extra oomph to the vocals to really sort of make them pop. And the piano as well. I'm not sure if that came in earlier, but it's prominent now, and it's a nice kind of instrument we haven't heard until now, I don't think. It's nice for allowing new elements as we go through the album. lot of drama with the strings and those little guitars. And again, the radio static again. It was nice to have a longer track that had that Foley in the background. You know, all this radio static there kind of telling the story as well. So I'll look through the lyrics and I'll be right back. So this one was a little bit trickier for me. I'm not sure if I necessarily get Phantom Radio. I read through the lyrics and it talked about someone like alone in a room. They're getting dressed up to go and it's chocolate floor, but they still feel alone even when they're around people and stuff like that. And like their souls kind of, everyone's soul is kind of solitary and stuff like that. And then they were like, you know, something about virginity and like once deflowered and stuff like that. I'm trying to sort of like connect the dots, but I don't want to go too much into the source in case I overanalyze it, you know. I suppose it would simply be about someone maybe getting their wires crossed, misunderstanding the signals around them, becoming isolated because they think stuff that isn't real. Phantom radio could be like thoughts in your own head that aren't really true or something like that. There's a lot of different ways I think you can interpret this. And it, again, it's quite different from the previous two tracks, which I kind of like in a longer format there. We're exploring a a little more sort of out there of a philosophical topic or like an idea there from the stuff that I think is more sort of like accessible for a lot of people previously. No, not that Phantom Radio isn't, but just like at face value, I mean. I think that what made this track special was not just, again, the bit of vocal fry we had there for an next bit of grit and sort of like passionate, but also the way that we kind of really captured the essence of like a hook line with those really sort of catchy core melodies there that get stuck in your head. It's also the fact that we slowly but like effortlessly layered it up to the point near the end where we had some really interesting sort of like leady bits there. And we had the pianos coming as well on the right hand, and it was just nice to have that new extra kind of bit of spice and pizzazz in there to show that we show even more. Like, again, we might have had keys before. I just noticed them more prominently at this point. It's great. The tone of the guitars with a bit more sound like kind of distortion to it. Was also a bit of edge, which was kind of dope as well, with the kind of octave sort of lead parts there, string skipped parts in the later stage. I wasn't too minds about when the guitar solo came in and like the static was going backwards and forwards, because for me I didn't understand necessarily the complete context of it. But I'm sure that if I had like a couple of listens with it and sort of had the lyrics in front of me, I'd probably be able to handle that. So that's all good. Again, I think I made a comment about like the dynamic range earlier on the piece with like a crescendo part, but aside from that, like I think the production in general is pretty good, and I like the organic nature of the performance. You can tell that they are just kind of jamming together and recording together, and it sounds like everyone's really putting their kind of heart and soul into it, and I have appreciation for that. Got track 4 though, 1982. So let's go with that. Again, Tom Focus with some wistful guitar leads. I like the 16ths on it, like the du-du-du-dus, you know.
But the 9 to 5 rat race was not what you lived for. The jet set could not hold a candle to you. And the bleach blonde trash talk lovers and dreamers with their short skirts, high heels, specs just to tease them. Quick on the draw, so fast with the trigger were you. It was
I mean, like, it's just an interesting sort of tale about the rat race and, like, talking about the people in the 80s and stuff like that.
Sally wants to groove tonight. Sally wants to move tonight. No matter what you do tonight. Sally wants to groove tonight.
Pyramid? See, that's a fun little addition. Oh, we have this new thing. what other new things are we going to have? And it helps you to kind of sit through an album because you're like constantly entertained by new shiny objects.
Cranked up, you'd unleash the power, but those high school days were so amateur hour. Crick your finger, watch them come running to you. All of your life you spent through the stop signs, moving nip and tuck and work, hide the birthdays and closing time. So cruel when the spotlight is shining on you.
Oh.
Sally wants to groove tonight. Sally wants to move tonight. Like 1982 tonight. Sally wants to groove tonight. Shake it now.
I think I know what the song is about without needing to check the lyrics, so. Great time for an instrumental break. Kind of trippy how it goes between the sides of the stereo field as well. Really satisfying transition back to that chorus as well. Oh, we're gonna have another fade out. It's very busy at this part, but you can still hear stuff distinctly. It's got that kind of almost post-rockish stuff with like a synth focus in parts, I suppose, like in parts, hear me out. Yeah, I think I've got this one. I think that this track is about someone who, when they were younger, got everything they basically wanted. They had all the boys at their beck and call, maybe, or like whoever they were trying to get stuff for, you know, they didn't really take no for an answer. And they sort of sped through life at their own pace and basically had whatever they wanted. And now life has changed and they can't necessarily hide the fact that the world has changed for them, the way they interact with it, you know. And they just want to dance. It's kind of like the story of a person going from like 1982 maybe to now where they're a bit older and, you know, they just don't maybe have what they used to, and maybe they're kind of coming to terms with that. You know, not that I personally feel that, but like stuff changes over like if this person was literally existing, you know, 40 years is a long time, right? So yeah, for me, I think it's just trying to sort of celebrate regardless and trying to go back to that time and enjoying it. I think if that's the case, I think it's great. I know a lot of people who are in their 60s and 70s who are a hell of a lot more alive than people in their 20s and 30s. So, you know, it's cool. But like, I think that the storytelling was really slick. Like, they're great. I appreciate the fact they're putting effort into that part of music, you know. Sometimes the story can also almost be an afterthought because it's all about trying to make a catchy beat or like to do a sick guitar solo or something. I think with the Groovies, it's about the groove, it's about the aesthetic they're trying to provide, where it's not just about having like you know, like great vocals and like sort of really tight guitar parts there, and having the drums play like a lot of different sort of ideas, and like again having all these different elements like the theremin coming into this track, which I thought was really cool as well. It's also about having a story that ties it all together. So I think ultimately it was really satisfying. As a drummer myself, I know how difficult it can be to pull off those fills, and I'm just really impressed that like in the vast majority of situations it's pretty much flawless, you know. Like there's like maybe one or two times, if I'm being just totally transparent, where like stuff wasn't absolutely on beat, but I get it, and I'd honestly rather have that be the case, because at least I know the person's actually playing the drums. No one plays like a robot. But again, the vast majority of it is in time and in step. It does sound professional, and I'm really stoked with it. It sounds like they just really enjoy playing music together, and not only that, but they're good at it. Got track number 5 though, Absolute You. So these are a bit longer than the first few. Not more than Phantom Radio, but you know.
There's a photograph in the image I can see in my mind. Too late. A distant life that I tried so hard to leave it behind. Too late. Oh.
Great to have a just steel string guitar. Is that a different type of drum tone to what we had before? I'm wondering if we're playing this on an acoustic or an electric kit, considering the flexibility we have with some of the tones. I don't mind. I mean, like, the electric kits are dope, but...
Intimidated only by the fears kept inside. Too late. Oh, absolute you. Oh, absolute you. Oh, absolute you.
Great call and response there again with the leads. Gradual build with strings.
Once upon a time it seemed so far away. We have never felt so alive. Somewhere down the road we went our separate ways. That day we hoped would never arrive. It's too late to try and catch that feeling from those yesterdays. All those yesterdays. Too late, and we never stop believing every single day. All that's left to say, it's too late.
Yeah, I would say that, like, I like how the guitars sound and the bass sound, and the vocals have an interesting chain on them. I would like to, like, know more about the effects chain we have on the vocals. It's just really, it's just an interesting tone to the way they've been recorded and stuff like that. I'm not trying to infer anything weird. The drums, though, I hear the drum tone, not the performance, but, like, the tone of the kit. I just think the drums sound a little bit too sort of thin. I also can't imagine that if you had, like, a thick, kind of sludgy drum tone, that'd necessarily work as well, but... Great to have things fade out, though.
I remember walking on the beach by your side. Too late. Waking and dreaming, you and I had nothing to hide. Too late. Oh, absolute you.
I mean, it's a really wholesome sounding chorus there. I like the chord choices. We sound like we're quite high in our vocal range. All right. I mean, I think I like a lot of this song. And we're going to talk about it more in a moment. I'm just going to double check those lyrics and be right back. All right. So what I can tell after reading through the lyrics is I think Absolute, as well as listening to the song, is that Absolute You is about, it's kind of referring back to what we might have spoken about in Heaven, where they split apart and there was a day that they hoped would never come. And they're kind of looking at the fact that they wouldn't potentially be able to ever rekindle those feelings. And it's about just, I suppose, looking back on the time they had together, and that's as much as I understand of it. It's basically sort of retrospect, I suppose, considering the situation in that way. Maybe it's reflecting on that heaven that they're talking about earlier. I mean, if that is the case, it's a nice way of linking back to the start of the album. It's good to have thematic continuity with an album to allow it to have a bit of extra context, you know. It's one thing to have similar instruments, similar performances, and similar tracks that kind of sound like each other, but to have the story kind of reconnect as well, to create a broader sort of concept is really cool. Then there was a lot to appreciate within this track. I enjoyed the wide variety of different sort of tom grooves and fills in there. I thought that the chorus and like phase or flagellated guitar parts were kind of dope there. They had a mistiness there, a freshness to the tone of them as well. Even though they were quite sort of smoothly moving into each other, there were no real sort of harsh textures or anything like that within this. The bass was nice and thick and full as well. And the vocals were pretty good. I think there was some parts where we sounded like we were hitting the top of our vocal range for those higher notes, and I think we were still like comfortable within our range, but it was good. I just want to sort of mention that it's good that we understood that, because sometimes you get singers who deliberately go past their vocal range and they just end up hurting their voices, and it's just nice to know that given these guys, I assume they're going to be sort of gigging and doing stuff with this album after release or before release. You know, they're going to be able to replicate that in a live situation. So that's good. Again, I think that the lack of dynamic range within the mix or master there, it would be nice to have some moments where things kind of stopped there. Though to be fair, in some of these tracks we've had points where like the instruments stop completely, or like you take away stuff and just have the drums, for example. We're aware that I think it's not just about literally having things quiet or louder. It's about sort of delayering and then layering back up and changing those levels there as well to kind of affect the intensity of the listening experience. Even though it was 5 minutes and we had a lot of kind of focus on that main hook line and a lot of lyrics were sort of more similar than potentially previous tracks, I just still think there wasn't any filler in this track. The transitions were seamless, and all in all, I thought it was another solid effort. We got one more track for today. We got Stormwind's track number 6. So let's go. Nice to have those wind chimey kind of things going on there. Makes you think of wind. Really pretty with those high harmonies over the octave guitars or the layered guitars and videos.
Sands of time have been ticking, swiftly washed away with the tide. I could just disappear into the blue. Resplendent is the color of the sea breeze that's in your eyes. I could just disappear into the blue. I felt the stillness in the moment.
It's kind of huge sounding, isn't it, with these pauses and these held notes.
Time approaches so quickly, fades the last few rays of the light. The mist that shadows us deeper out of view. Currents change our direction when there's no more land in sight. The clouds might burst into flames, fall from the sky.
See how that guitar came with the storm winds or something like that? Like, again, I can't sing. It's nice that the guitar kind of flew up with it. To have other instruments kind of come up with it. It's just great to have that awareness within the band and that chemistry between elements. And the kind of the fuzziness of some of those flanger or phases sections there on the guitars do kind of sound like storm clouds, you know? And see, that's what I like, is we've had quite a similar amount of the main theme. That upwards layer there, that little bit of big stuff happening in the top end there to kind of follow us out. Nice. And the hook line reiterated on top. They're going back to that kind of like wind chimey kind of bellish kind of foley there. With just the tiniest shimmer of a guitar part as a sub layer underneath. Just a little bit of magic there. Okay, one more time through the lyrics and then we'll be back. Okay, so with Stormwind's track number 6 for today. Basically, my understanding of this one, as well after listening to the song again as well, because you can hear the lyrics, what that are sung within the track. I just like, it's just good to, well there we go, got lyrics there as well. I've just realized I've got a lyrics option next to the track in Bandcamp, so you can check that out as well, but which is great. But I think it's about, like, again, people being separated because of the storm winds, you know, like they're initially together, but then things kind of come in and there's like bits of distortion and like kind of treachery that occur there and the seas surround them or things kind of blow them apart. That's what we're kind of talking about here. It wouldn't surprise me if this was kind of what like Phantom Radio might have been about, with like people getting confused by the signals around them and stuff like that. It's interesting stuff to talk about. I like the I feel sad that they've had to go through it, but at the same time I like the fact that we're telling a tale from that angle. It's a unique one that we haven't really explored so far within this, so it's nice we're looking over different things. And it's worth noting that in the album art that they've got the heaven up top and then it's over an ocean, so that might be the heaven up top and then the hell was below within the sea. I'm not sure, but anyways, I appreciate how bright and charming the guitar parts were, especially near the end. I thought the way they kind of flooded around the place there with some interesting sort of hammer-on pill-off parts were great. Again, the drummer with the percussion was very supportive, as well as the bass. We were very comfortable with the hook lines on the vocals, and we even had some pretty sort of falsetto parts on top of the vocals near the end. I mean, ultimately, there was a lot to appreciate within each of these tracks there, but we've got the core elements handled. And aside from a few things I'll talk about, the conclusion that I've already sort of done to death, I suppose, at this point. Yeah, majority of it's really dope. So let's talk about that more in the conclusion. Because welcome to the conclusion of my review of this album from an act named The Groovies, titled Heaven. What do I think this album is about? I think that the vast majority of this album is about someone talking about the partner or the person they used to be with, the fact that they used to be together, what drove them apart, the storm winds kind of like pulling them apart, maybe Phantom Radio was, maybe this is dedicated to one person, because it would be, suppose, Occam's razor, it'd be less likely that it'd be necessarily two people involved. Maybe the person they used to be with was like someone who like used to again be like pretty on top of things, another boss, whatever, and then like nowadays they kind of have the spotlight on them, it's unfair, etc. I'm not sure. It could be about one person, it could be about a few, but either way, a lot of it is about sort of like the love and loss of relationships and trying to sort of like figure out what's going on, hoping they find heaven and happiness, but also trying to let them know that they will try to sort of protect them if they can. So I think that there's a lot of beauty within this. I think that a lot of the messaging is really wholesome. Even it's not impossible, they're trying to sort of like, as I understand it, work up the courage to go for that person. And I think also like 1982 is a self-awareness of the position of the other person in that situation and kind of commenting on it from like a third-person perspective, looking at them across that period. So it's really intriguing stuff. They don't over-explain it. So you kind of have to fill in the gaps yourself, unless I've missed some pretty sort of non-existent nuance in there. But like, unless I've really sort of missed some key information. But like, either way, really interesting stories. I think that the vocals that accompanied them and told them were great. We clearly had a passion for what we were doing. We understood how to create melodies as well as harmonies that worked within the backings and also, suited the stories that we were telling there. We were major when it suited happier kind of bits, I suppose, minor when it didn't. We understood the fundamentals there. We had a bit of vocal fry occasionally. We were comfortable within about an octave or maybe 2 octaves of our vocal range there, and we knew where our limit was in the higher end there, and our lower end segged nicely on top of the guitar, bass, drums, etc., like piano, etc., in a way that was really satisfying. So we had a clear sort of awareness of where to position ourselves as well in regards to our pitch, and ultimately I just thought that we nailed it. It was nice also to just have again like those kind of like vocal harmonies as well that aren't necessarily storytelling parts, but just are nice little pseudo instrumental bits on top of everything else to kind of lead out a track. It's great that we understood that again vocals aren't just a storytelling device, they're a way of coloring a track in a way that can be very satisfying if done well. So yep, singing was top notch, really stoked with that. The songs in general were between 3 minutes like 27 and 6 minutes 22, and they were typically verses and choruses. Some of them had intros, like Phantom Radio had like an intro with like sort of a bit of fuzz and stuff like that, trying to find a channel. There was an outro like that. Stormwinds had like bells on either side or whatever, like bits of foley there to kind of help you sort of understand maybe more of the story more than what's sort of being delivered to you absolutely. Other tracks were more straightforward. You had your key ingredients of like guitar, bass, drums, instantiated fairly quickly, if not within the first minute. We also had other ones like thin strings or strings. We had sort of like a theremin, I think at some point. There were keys as well. There were a few sort of like leadish kind of solo sections there. There were a few sort of instrumental breaks as well. We had interludes. We didn't just have A B the entire time, which I appreciate. And some of I think with like, it's not impossible. We even split the choruses up. We didn't just have like one chord progression for the chorus. We'd split it up into 2 different halves there, which made it more intriguing because it was like, the A and B, like the kind of, it's not a Jekyll and Hyde situation, but it's like a situation where, we're down here, but then we're coming up with a bit of sort of hope or like cautious optimism, I suppose. I don't know, pragmatism, but the structuring was interesting. We made the most of our instruments for the most part, and I think that ultimately, the songs, there wasn't really any filler within the tracks. If I talk about a few of my favorite instruments within this album, I think, again, the drums were very, very sort of like noticeable for me. It's not just because I'm a drummer, like I also play guitar and I play bass and I play piano and stuff like that. I think that the drums were done really well. I appreciated what we were trying to do with the wide variety of 8th, triplets, and 16th note grooves there, and I think that we typically handled things incredibly well. We colored the tracks in a way where it was very satisfying to listen to. There were no filler movements with the percussion. The ideas were clever, and I appreciate the fact that we didn't just sort of like stick with like pocketing the entire time. We had sort of fancy parts there, really sort of seamless transitions there. Toms going from left to right. We played around with expectations and kind of we did more than I would have expected, like within like the context of the guitar, bass, and parts. But we managed to like really sort of find a happy place there, and I'm glad we did. And it just sounded like, again, we sounded like we were having joy playing the instrument. I appreciate that. We could play, but we also we also really cared about it. The guitar parts were cool too, man. I appreciate the work with the chords. A lot of it was kind of jangly, broken chords and arpeggios. You did have strummed chords, like you had sort of steel string parts as well with pick sections. You had some lead sections there where they were typically sort of like mid to high range kind of fretted parts there. You had some hammer and plover bits or like kind of strum skip sections between octaves there. They were catchy, they were nice and charming to listen to. They were like a really sort of, they're like a Labrador puppy, really, the guitars for the most part, aside from in tracks where they're a bit sort of more sort of down, a bit minorish or whatever, you know. We could typically, I think, follow the mood that was required within the piece with the guitars, with the harmonies there in a way that was very satisfying and made sense there tonally and harmonically. And we had a great understanding of kind of helping to sort of rhythmically sync that to like what the bass and the drums were doing in a way that was very satisfying. And we also had like, you know, cooler responses occasionally as well. We didn't just have the guitars and the vocals the entire time. They'd kind of respond to each other. Things would move back and forth. It was nice. I think there's only one bit where I didn't necessarily get it with Phantom Radio, where like, again, the guitar was going back to right there. It could have been the guitar was the thing that the radio was chasing. I'm not sure. Maybe we were trying to, that was the answer we were looking for and we couldn't see it through the static. But either way, aside from that, really happy with it. A few other star mentions were the keys when we had them. I'm not sure whether it was 1982 or Absolute You, one of those tracks where we introduced keys for the first time, but like it was just nice to have the left-hand accents with like the octaves or the triads there. They added, so they kind of grounded things a little bit, especially with a lot of the guitar riffs being kind of very kind of like fuzzy with like reverbs or like flanges or phase or whatever, you know, a bit of choruses. With the drums, I mean the bass, should I say, because I didn't talk about the bass. The bass was tight. The bass was really, really tight. I liked the way we moved around the fretboard on that. We not only accentuated the root notes, we also were comfortable exploring scale shapes and just really sort of handled things well across the triads and also the modes and such. But yeah, the piano highlighted a lot of what the guitar and bass and stuff were doing in the mid to high range in a way that was really sort of like pleasant to listen to. The synth strings added a bit of extra sort of drama to it, or the strings did. And they also, what I really appreciated there was they filled in that mid-range on the sides a bit, and they kind of made it a bit sort of more thick sounding and full, but not in the way that overwhelmed the arrangement or composition. Another quick shout out to the theremin that I mentioned earlier. There was like a song where like we had that theremin and it was like really kind of like almost spooky sounding, but it was just a nice foil, an alternative lead to having, again, just the vocals. We had quite a lot of singing throughout this, so it was predominantly vocal focused, even with the movement of the guitars and the business of the piece in some respects. But again, because it was a one-time thing, you notice it, and it kind of helps to give a song a certain sort of uniqueness and sense of identity that it might not have otherwise. Ultimately, I think the different instruments we had, in addition to the ones I had mentioned, sort of segged well, niched well together without any sort of weird, awkward phrasings there. The performance in general was really, really good. You can tell they were recording in the same room and just kind of like jamming out together. You can tell they put a lot of care and love into their pieces there, and I think it came across well, authentically within the recording. The themes themselves, how do I describe the overall sort of theme of the album? A lot of it was like kind of soaked, kind of jangly major and minor chords there, straying away from too many sort of awkward or kind of clashy tones there. We weren't trying to be too rough around the edges. It was meant to sort of be like palatable and considerate, but with also trying to encourage people not to get sort of down in the dumps about it. Like there was some stuff we were talking about where it might usually be quite sad and kind of dour, but I think we're trying to avoid getting people too like invested in that side of things there. The variety of different sort of rhythms and grooves there in combination to the color of the harmonies, in addition to the changes there and tempo choice, as well as just the style of music in general, it was just really fancy, and I appreciate the subtle changes with different styles within the album, whilst also keeping a sense of sort of tonal continuity or performative continuity throughout. Now, it wasn't just the vocals that helped keep things along. We had similar tones to like the guitars and stuff like that. And there were some drum tones I didn't like, but that's more of a production thing, I think. Yeah, the themes in general, I spoke about them per track, or at least about the chords per track. And if I didn't, I don't think there was a theme that didn't suit the lyrics or the vocals at that point. And I don't really think there was a note out of place. Finally, the studio recording, mixing, and mastering. Now, this is an interesting one. I've spoken about the dynamic range. I think that there was not a sufficient amount of dynamic range on the master of this. I think things were too tightly compressed. Things If there had been like an extra dB or two of headroom, I thought things just, again, there would have been like crescendos that would have been more impactful. When we came back into sections, it would have been more sort of oomph with like the guitars or the bass or something like that. I think part of that also came down to like there were one or two tracks where like the drums, they just sounded a little bit too thin for my tastes. But I also, again, I was struggling to think of how you could potentially fix that because it depends on like a lot of other elements of the mix as well. That is not to say that I think it's mixed or mastered badly. It's my subjective experience with it. So these are loud mixes, or loud masters, I suppose. So like if you want loud masters, then you're gonna have to have a bit less dynamic range. I just think some of these tracks could have potentially benefited by just a bit more, like maybe 1 or 2 dB. But still, that there's still like you can hear the individual elements within the mix as well. They surround you in a stereo field. You know, it's not just that they're static there either. Things go from left to right. There's drum fills or guitar lines or whatever, and they go whoosh, whoosh, and it's very interesting, genuinely exciting to listen to. And then there's no weird resonant frequencies in the frequency spectrum either. Things are well sort of leveled there. I think the vocals, there were good takes there. There were some really clean transitions between notes. Like, the guy just was like hitting those notes really cleanly, which was cool. And, again, the harmonies as well were really sick. I liked how the harmonies sort of stacked on top of each other. Again, I've spoken about dynamic range. It was nice and loud without pumping, so I think there wasn't any pumping. So I think the bus compression limiting was handled. Again, it's just a really loud track, but that's the kind of album we want. It's cool. It's not a criticism. It's just something I've noticed throughout the analysis. But look, that was my review of this album from an act named The Groovies titled Heaven, and hopefully you enjoyed it. If you did, please do go show them some love via the various social medias and Bandcamp page. Please remember that this is released on March 30th of 2024, so if it is before the date, please do go check it out for yourself and support the act if you enjoy it. If it is after the date, it is on their Bandcamp page, and stay cool and stay safe. Please remember to support your local musicians and artists at this point in time, as they need the help more than ever with all the crazy stuff going on in the world. And I'll catch you in the next review. Spiderhands out.